Okay, we're live.
Okay.
So I'm live with Trustee Sherman Jones in Broadview, who's currently running for mayor of Broadview. If he wins against incumbent Mayor Katrina Thompson, this will be his third term as mayor of Broadview. Just a note, this is one of a segment that we call VFP Newsmakers that we're going to start doing on a regular basis.
Okay.
We've done exactly one candidate forum in Maywood. We had intended to do more, but we didn't realize just how hectic a campaign season this has been. So I've been disappointed in my own ability to do more election coverage and things beyond Maywood and other communities. But we did, however, invite both Mayor Thompson and Trustee Jones to do a candidate forum. Mayor Thompson said she wasn't interested in she also said she didn't have time to do it this week, in fairness to her. Trustee Jones said he was interested. I had actually asked him before asking Mayor Thompson. So in fairness to Trustee Jones and his interest, I just want to give you an opportunity to explain your campaign platform and just to have a very informal dialogue about the things that you want to do if you're elected. And I want to start with allowing you to introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, first of all, my name is Sherman Jones. I've been a resident of Broadview since 1962, grew up here, graduated from District 89 Roosevelt School, Proviso East 209, went to Triton Junior College. Worked for the post office for over 30 years, retired as the Maywood and Broadview postmaster. Served on the village board of Broadview since 2007. First 2 years as a trustee, then the next 4 years as mayor, the next 4 years after that as mayor, and I'm currently ending my second term as a trustee. My platform is quite simply this: financial solvency, stability and integrity with our village finances, economic development, and continue to maintain our infrastructure, along with local services for our seniors and our children and our residents as a whole, and to be more inclusive and an inviting community. Hopefully that I can make Broadview the beacon of the Proviso Township, where everybody wants to come and say, you know what, Broadview's the place to be. So that's where we're at, and I'm running on a slate with some very faith-based individuals. Reverend Vernon Terry is running for trustee spot. He's an associate pastor at Broadview Baptist Church. Mr. Osborne is affiliated with a church on the west side. I can't recall the name of the church right now. He's heavily involved with it. He also has raised 3 boys in town. All of them have gone through local schools, local public schools, and are now either in college or on their way to college. Marino Horn is a young and upcoming young lady who's a professional. She's got an MBA in finance. She came to some board meetings when I was the mayor, and we had some dialogue because of things that were going on. I convinced her to run when we both ran with Mayor Thompson in 2017. She was on the finance committee with me and was removed from the finance committee by the current mayor, along with myself, after questioning some financial situations in the village. She's not been here that long. She's only been here, I think, 7 years or 7 or 8 years. But at any rate, she was a parent of a daughter. Her daughter's in college and in the military, the ROTC, I believe. And then there's Judy Marino, who has been a political activist in Broadview since the early 2000s. And she was the one that was blowing the bugle that we were in trouble just prior to the layoffs of the police and firemen that occurred in 2006. So, you know, I got a very sound slate, some very good individuals that hopefully if we all get in, we can make some very definite changes that'll move the village forward.
So your trustee term is by running for mayor, you're effectively not running for another term as trustee, right?
That's correct. My trustee term ends at the end of this cycle. If I wasn't running for mayor, I would have had to run for trustee or not run at all. So, my term in office will end. If I'm not selected as the mayor, then my term of office will end at the end of April.
Does that mean that you will no longer be in civic life or in elected capacity? Is that the last time you run, or?
I won't. I don't plan to seek office after this. If they elect Ms. Thompson mayor, no, I would not be looking for anything further. I'm 62 years old. If by that time I'd be 65 going on 66, so no, I wouldn't be the one to do that.
I wanted to unpack some things that about your priorities that you had mentioned, and one of the main things is finances.
Yeah.
So you had said one of the reasons that you and the current mayor split was because of some financial issues. You had formerly been on the finance committee.
I was the committee chair for finance for the current mayor for a little while.
So what happened that resulted in you not being on the committee?
Well, the very first thing that happened is that she decided she did not want to have a full-time finance director on staff. What she did was she contracted it out to an individual that's got a relationship with her family or her church. I'm not sure which one. But this gentleman actually has a full-time job elsewhere during business hours. And therefore, he cannot effectively function as the village's finance director because he's not in the building during business hours. He can't even conduct financial transactions because he's elsewhere working. What the village needs is a finance director that's there during the day, during business hours, when other financial institutions are open and operating for business, is when he needs to be there, along with when the village is open and operating for business. When our people are coming in, paying their bills, they're paying their water bills, fines, getting permits, or whatever the case may be. And when revenues come in, to make sure that they're properly identified and properly allocated to the proper funds, because a lot of the revenues that are received in the municipality are restricted to certain uses. So, you need to have somebody, a professional, knowledgeable person, hands-on, dealing with this. And that was one of the first things of my priority when I got elected in 2009, because I do not profess to be a municipal financeologist. I need somebody that's really versed in municipal finances to make sure that we're doing the right thing. I know about budgets and I know about, accounts and credits and all that other stuff. And I know how to manage all that stuff, but I am not it's not my background. My background is not municipal finance. And in the absence of having a municipal finance person, there's really nobody there there's no gatekeeper. There's nobody there to oversee the funds to make sure that we're not doing this, that, or the other. So that was the first of it.
Who's the current finance director? Who exactly are you talking about? So people can understand.
Timothy Hicks, and you could probably find him on LinkedIn and see, because I think he switched jobs since we've been elected. I don't know where he is right now.
So you're saying he's effectively part-time?
He is a contractor. He is an appointed contractor by the mayor, and his invoices are generated from his home. So there's no way to oversee the hours. He gets paid hourly. There's no way for us to oversee the hours to make sure that the hours are accurate for the work that's being done. And I do believe if he was there, we would not have had created this $900,000 deficit budget. And there's quite a few things that have occurred that I think a real finance director would have curtailed or prevented.
Now, what was the setup before Mayor Thompson was in office when you were mayor? Did you all have a full-time person?
So we had a full-time finance director. She ended up leaving, going to District 88, I believe. And then for a short time, and I decided not to actually appoint one because there was an election coming up and I wasn't going to be able to run. So instead of appointing another finance director, we had contracted in a couple of interim directors through professional agencies that provide municipal accountants to do the finances and accounting work for the village, leading up to that last election where the current Mayor Thompson ran.
So there was a contract person when you were mayor. If you had retained your position, you're saying you would have eventually hired a full-time person.
Yeah, I had a full-time person at first, and that was what helped get us out of the financial quagmire that we were in. The financial minutia that we inherited going in is almost undescribable. And Miss Baptist, and I got to love the lady. She did a fantabulous job helping manage the village finances and getting things in order, only to see things go awry later on. But
Because you all, I remember reporting on you all announcing that you had achieved, what was it, AA credit or AAA credit?
Yeah, we achieved. Standard & Poor came out and well, I demanded that they come out and raise. They came out 3 times. Let me go back a little bit. So when I walked into office, I walked into a $4.8 million deficit in our budget, about $30 million in bonds that we were paying, an $800,000 deficit to the police and fire pension. So we had all of these things out there. And in the meantime, we had laid off a quarter of our police and fire department and totally dismantled our public works department. So we had no public works department other than a skeleton crew over there. The police were almost disengaged because they were disappointed because their comrades had left, and we lost contracts with the Heinz and the VA at that time. So it was a big financial debacle at the time, and we had to, the first thing we had to do was we had to stop the spending, stop the bleeding. So we consolidated everything. We put everything into one credit card, and we stopped all non-essential spending. Non-essential spending ceased, and then we had to start creating alternative revenues and get our codes up to date. So our village codes, we were one of the few municipalities that still had $5 parking tickets. We had $5 parking tickets where everybody else's parking tickets are $25 and $30, things like that. Our towing rates were not up to par with everybody else. So we adjusted a lot of our rates and did a lot of those things, and we streamlined stuff. And then we created a committee for benefits, a benefit committee using all the departments. We had someone from the fire, the police, village hall, public works, and myself. So we created a committee to do our benefits, and we saved a lot of money in our insurance costs, a ton of money in insurance costs. That helped a lot. We renegotiated, fees from our banks. We renegotiated the amount of money that we were going to have to pay to the police and fire pension. And things just started working. They moved slow, but they started working. We had some tips that we knew that we weren't going to do anything with. There was money in those tips, so we closed a couple of the tips early. TIFs are tax increment funding districts where the money is diverted, doesn't go directly to the municipality or to the other taxing bodies. We declared the surplus and gave the money back to the taxing bodies and gave the money back to the village. And all of these things combined helped, grow the health of the village. So there's a lot of moving parts there. But you had to have somebody on staff to get it done.
So I'm thinking about the current staff now. In addition to the contract, what you said is the contract finance director. There's also Mr. Hood, though, and doesn't he?
Yeah.
What's his role in
let me tell you
the village's finances?
Okay, so if we're just talking staffing, you had a finance director when I was there. I appointed Tom Hood in 2009 to be the budget officer. Mm-hmm. And that's the genesis, and well, I won't say the genesis, but that's the beginning of the whole process, is to create a balanced budget, and let people know where we got to tighten up. So Tom and I sat down. I tasked Tom with talking to each and every one of the department heads to do their budgets, and every department head wants the world. Every department head wants $3 million more than possible. Anyway, so Tom's job was to go in there and talk everybody down to a certain. I had to tell him that you're going to cut it another, 10 or 12% or whatever it is, and directly to go back and talk to him, and then we collectively talk to everybody about the ensuing final budget. The finance director was involved in the same discussions as it relates to revenues coming into the village and projections. And the only way we could do that was take the historical numbers, take a look at them, see what the trend was, and see what new growth we had. If we had new growth or we were missing something, we would make adjustments for that. And we always left room to make adjustments going forward.
So I just want to be clear. There's not just a contract. There are a few people who are involved in maintaining the village's finances. There's Mr. Hood. There's the guy you had just mentioned. I can't even think of his name right now.
Timothy Hicks.
Tim Hicks. How is this situation going to be different if you're mayor again?
Well, you would have a finance director literally in the building 9 to 5, where someone can actually walk down the hall and talk directly to the person responsible for the village finances. Right now, they have to email and text and go back and forth trying to talk to him. And he's at work at another location, taking care of his primary job, doing whatever it is he's doing, and trying to deal with what's going on in Village Hall. And he's not physically in the building. What you need to have is a finance director that's physically in the building. And I'm actually considering changing the actual structure, the actual titles. But at any rate, you need to have a finance director, the person responsible for finances. You have a budget officer. You have a village treasurer that makes sure they do the reports and make sure that they get the monthly bank statements corrected and balanced. So those are the key people in the finance department. Then we have the current mayor created what she calls a finance coordinator, which is a clerk in Village Hall right now, which is basically doing the accounting work, making sure that the revenues are properly allocated, making sure that the journal entries are properly done, and making sure that the AP and the warrant list get out properly. So she does accounts payable, she does the incoming revenues, and so on and so forth, in the absence of a finance director and a budget officer and a treasurer. So we don't have all that. Yeah.
Well, you're going to find some money in the budget to pay for a full-time person to replace Mr. Hicks?
There has always been money in the budget to pay for a full-time finance director. The amount of money that they're paying Mr. Hicks at this point comes up to what would be almost a full-time finance director. It's probably only a few $100s a month more than what we would be paying, what we are ultimately paying Mr. Hicks now. Mr. Hicks, from my perspective, is probably making almost a full-time salary.
You have some opinions on other positions throughout the village as well. Because I want people to understand, a change in mayors means, some people's employment changes too within Village Hall. So kind of address, what your thoughts are on current administrators in Village Hall, and if you're elected, how their functions will change, and if they'll still have roles in the village. Period.
The plan for me is once we get elected and walk and take office. Matter of fact, even in the transition period before I walk in, we're going to do an evaluation of all the positions that they have in the office and cut out a lot of the fat. I believe that just in personnel services alone, there's probably $500,000 almost that can be cut immediately within the first 30 days of being in office, because I do not believe that the mayor's office needs a village administrator and a personal administrative assistant. I do not believe.
So you're gonna get rid of both of those positions if you're elected?
I would create one position.
If in fact consolidate them?
I would consolidate them.
Okay.
My public works department, they don't need 2 administrative assistants down there. Matter of fact, they don't even need one, based on what I've observed. I would probably eliminate one of the positions, and I would probably take the other one and make it part-time down there at Public Works and part-time at Village Hall. Simply because I don't think that there's enough work for an administrative assistant in Village Hall. The other thing is there's extra individuals working in the building department. Our building department is small. We're landlocked. We're only 2.2 square miles. There is absolutely no reason to have about 4 or 5 people on staff in the building department. The building department director, a full-time inspector, and then 2 more admins in the building. And then you've also got a contracted inspector. So you've got a contract inspector, an on-staff inspector, 2 administrative assistants in the building, plus the building administrator. So it's just a lot of bodies, a lot of moving parts, and I just don't think it's necessary. So those positions will all have to be addressed.
You talked about this is a key point of contention between you, some other people on the board, namely Trustee Marino Horn, and the mayor. And this was a dispute about whether or not I don't know if it was the most recent budget or the one before this was in fact a balanced budget. Kind of lay out what exactly the situation was between you, Ms. Horn, and Mayor Thompson about the budget, which year it was, and what your perspective is on this situation.
Well, it was the budget for 2020.
Okay.
2019 had ended, and the auditors were having a really hard time trying to gather information, i.e. because we don't have a finance director on staff. So when the auditors came in, they ended up having to do some accounting work. We actually paid extra fees for our auditors to do some of our accounting work. And my argument at the time was, well, they're auditing their own work. If they're going to do the accounting work, they're auditing their own work. I don't even know if the audit is going to be that accurate, because they were there for weeks and weeks doing accounting work. And then we finally got the 2019 audit this year, 2021. 2019 audit was presented to us in 2021. I want to say either the end of January, beginning of February, which is unacceptable. The 2019 ends in May. The auditors are usually in the building in June and July, sometimes as late as August, because they wait until you tie out the last month. So you tie out the last month's finances, and once you do that and you're prepared for the auditors to come in, they generally come in. They generally spend about 2 to 3 weeks in field work in your office gathering all the data. They take it with them. They create the audit report, and you get it back. And it generally takes about 60 to 85 or 90 days, about 3 months, all told. So if they start in June, you should have it by the fall, and we didn't get it until the following year. 2020 had already gotten toward the end of it when we finally got the audit. And the audit bared out what Trustee Horn and I were saying, was that we were operating in the red, that we were in good financial position because we had a cushion. So we had a surplus revenue or funds on hand from when I left, and that's why we were still in good position. The mayor created a budget that reflected $933,000 in the red in a deficit, and with no plan to fix it. So you say that we're going to operate and we're going to spend $933,000 more than we take in, but you haven't made any moves to try to cut to get it balanced. You didn't cut any positions. You didn't reduce any services. You didn't eliminate any credit cards. You didn't stop the spending. You didn't stop all non-essential spending or anything like that. You didn't even go back and revise the budget. And in the meantime, she's saying that it's balanced. For 9 months, she kept harping on the fact that our budget is balanced, and it's showing a $933,000 deficit. And on August 5th, Trustee Horn cornered the village budget officer. And the village budget officer, who is a CPA, actually said in the board meeting, yes, it is a deficit budget. It was a few months after that the mayor made the adjustments to the budget. We got COVID relief money that came in, and then she borrowed $1 million from the water fund to put into the general fund for operating expenses. That's what the legislation says. Ultimately, that money went into Fund 30, which is for debt services, and that's to pay on the bond, which we have an $11 million bond. So the budget's still not balanced. You just moved the deficit from one part of your finances to another. You still owe the water fund $1 million, and you don't have a plan to pay it back. There's no plan in place to pay it back other than to continue raising our water rates. There's no reason to raise our water rates if I got $1 million in the fund.
So the reason that I remember this discussion when they changed the water rates, and the reason from administrators was because it would go to fund some critical improvements in the infrastructure. So by moving the money from the water fund into the general fund, you saying that the reason why the rates were increased is those infrastructure improvements aren't going to happen? I mean, because, and it kind of, let me know if I'm confused. What does it mean for the village if this is in fact the case? Because I don't have the documentation in front of me for them to move the money from one fund to another. Kind of explain what the implications of that is.
So there are interfund transfers, and there are so you can borrow money from one fund to another fund as long as you're going to pay it back. The mayor doesn't have a plan to pay this water fund back. She was asked, but she had no answer. We'll pay it back. Well, how are you going to do it? You don't have any new revenues. You tied all of your ancillary, your peripheral revenues into paying off the bond. So if all of your non-property tax revenue is committed to paying off an $11 million bond, where are you going to get the money to pay the $1 million back to the water fund? You're going to tax your residents by raising the water rates. She's got a 5-year plan to raise the water rates every 6 months. You don't have to. It's not necessary. It never should have happened.
So the water rates, for a long time, Broadview wasn't raising water rates at all, right?
We were raising water rates. We were not raising them at the rate that they're being raised now because we had the money in the fund. So when it comes to raising water rates, this is how I looked at it. City of Chicago raises the water rate to us 15%. Well, the water rate is not directly raised to the municipality of Broadview or the municipality of Westchester, because in our case, we have a separate entity, the Broadview Westchester Water Agency. So the rate from the city is up 15% to the water agency, not to the municipality. The water agency is selling the water to the municipality. Mm-hmm. So we are a secondary recipient of water from Chicago. It goes to the agency first, then it gets sent out to us, and we pay the agency who pays the water bill. That's how it works. With that being said, if I've got $1.5 million in flush money sitting in my water fund that I'm using basically for maintenance on my infrastructure and replacing infrastructure, and it's sitting there, there's no need for me to raise the water rates 15%. So what do? I raise it 10%. I raise it because I got to make sure that I continue to keep money flowing into the reserves in order to make sure that we can manage water main breaks, replacement of pipes, so on and so forth. Same thing with equipment and personnel. So you have to have money for equipment and personnel as well. Okay, that's all great, but there's no reason to raise the water rates. My suspicion is that the way the current mayor spends money is that, and she can't raise taxes. We're not home rule, so we can't raise property taxes. So what do? You got the water agency. You control the price of the water to the residents. You raise the water rates. Here's the problem with her raising the water rate. She's got the pyramid upside down. She did a tiered water rate program. The first 25 units you use cost the most. Mm-hmm. The next amount of water that you use has a lower rate. And then after you go to another point, it has a lower rate. What does that do? That means that your residents are paying the highest rate possible for their water. Your residents are paying for water that they're not even going to use, and they're paying the highest rate. And if you cost average out the water, the bigger businesses in town that make money off the water are paying a couple of dollars less than your resident and people that use it for life purposes. So the water comes into your house, you use it to bathe, you use it to cook, use it to clean, wash your hands and things like that. That's what we use our water for. Businesses use the water to create a profit, make money. It's a commodity that they use. It's a material that they use and they pay. We are a supplier of materials. And like any other business, they should just take whatever the cost of the materials are, pass it on to the end user or the customer that they're going to sell their product to. We got it backwards. They came to me in 2010 with the same plan. I told them to kick rocks. But so they came, this plan is the identical plan that was brought to me by Van Eat Foods in 2010, this tiered water, because the more they use, the less they pay. And the plan that we had, they paid a flat rate, an industrial rate, which was about $2 a unit higher than the residential rate. And so ultimately, they're going to end up saving money. The Village of Broadview's top 5 water users are going to save, on average, based on the numbers that I have, and I may be incorrect, but I think I'm pretty accurate. They're going to save about somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 a year, because we've got some new big water users in town that I haven't been able to look at their numbers yet. But it's going to be somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 that they're going to save, and the residents are going to pay more than that, over and above, and they're going to continue to get raised. I was talking to residents tonight. You think your water rates are high now? Just wait 3 or 4 years from now, because she's raising them every 6 months. She's going to keep raising them because she needs the money.
Now,
my plan is to go back to a flat rate. My plan is to go back to a flat rate for residential housing, a flat rate for commercial, and a flat rate for industrial. And then we have, hospital and school rates.
So what I remember, I did report on this. This is back in February of last year, I believe. And one of the concerns that village officials had raised in the meeting where they approved this this increase, or this plan, was that when you were mayor, the cost of emergency water main repairs had increased substantially, and so their explanation for, in part, a partial explanation for raising these was that they needed to pay for these emergency water main repairs, which the village was spending a lot of, millions of dollars on. So if you go back to a flat water rate, are you afraid that the level of maintenance will decrease?
Well, let me say this: the infrastructure is 80 years old in some areas, and we've been systematically replacing the infrastructure with new piping, new water mains, especially up and down Roosevelt Road and our commercial corridor. But the information that they gave you is incorrect, and I challenge them to go check the data. We actually cut our water emergency water main break costs during the time I was in office. We reduced them so significantly. That's how we got over $1 million in the water fund in the first place. And if you've got over $1 million in the water fund surplus, there's no need or reason to raise the water rates for emergency repairs. And that's the problem that I have. You want to raise water rates based on an assumption that something's going to happen and that you need this extra money, but you've already got $1 million sitting there. And I don't see the need to do that at this point. There's no need for me to tax my residents and try to gouge them out of more money for what may or may not happen. That doesn't make any sense. You've already got money sitting there. There are reserves that are already there for that purpose. You're generating revenue over and above your operating expenses. So if you're generating revenue annually over and above your operating expenses, a significant amount over your operating expenses, and you've already got $1 million and some change in the bank, why are you raising your rates? Because in effect, you lowered the rates for the businesses. In order to make up the difference, the water rates that you lowered for the businesses, you had to go and put that on the back of the tax-paying residents in town, the lunch pail guys that go to work every day, the union guys that you count on to fix your electrical lines or fix your water themselves, the guys that you count on to drive the buses or to drive the taxis. Those guys are the ones that you want to pay for this water discount that you gave these businesses. And I think that's wrong.
Kevin McGreer is the current clerk, and who was the Sidewalks and Alleys chairman for 8 years when he was on the board. He said that the reserves were almost depleted at the time that they made the decision to raise the rates to increase the reserves. How do you respond to that?
Well, where'd the $1 million come from? They didn't get $1 million that quick, did they? Then they need to explain how they feel that they can transfer $1 million from that water fund into the general fund to balance the general fund. Where did that come from? You can't have it both ways. You can't say that your funds are depleted, but then you can borrow $1 million and send it somewhere else. You can't have it both ways. Which one is true? We know they borrowed $1 million to fix the deficit shortfall, the budget shortfall.
Okay. If there are anybody that has any hard information that you can address, I'll bring it up. And I know that we're getting comments. So if anybody else has any questions that may be pertinent to the conversation, I'll ask those. I'm going to move on to some other things. There's a lot to cover.
There's plenty to cover.
Yeah,
There's
we can
stuff going on.
We can talk
We
about
do
this
this
all
2-3
night.
times. Yeah.
Right. Let's go on to another plank in your campaign, which is economic development. It kind of explain where your candidacy differs from Mayor Thompson's in that area.
Well, Mayor Thompson has absolutely no regard for the financial component of the economic development piece. And here's the reason why. I can just use the senior housing development as a start. So the senior housing development, as it's constructed right now, is a landlord-tenant situation where we're the landlord and they've got a land lease on the property. We invested over $2 million in the property. The current mayor, Mayor Thompson, invested over $300,000 in the purchasing of a business that was on the property. And then you gave it away to an entity that's a for-profit entity, and there's no revenue coming in from it. And you did not require them to create anything that's going to enhance your tax base, especially sales tax. My original plan for the senior housing development was that the ground floor was going to be basically retail. It was going to be, and this was the plan. On the ground floor of the senior housing development, we would have had a pharmacy, a drugstore pharmacy. We would have had a coffee shop. We would have had the doctor and the dentist in the building. These and possibly the barber in the building. So we would have had at least 5, revenue generating businesses right there in the building, and put the seniors on the top 2-3 floors. But they've got a building that's going up this strictly residential, so you don't get the dual taxes. You're only going to get the property taxes at some point in time. It's in the TIF district right now. You won't get those taxes, at least not the increment that's coming up on it. And secondarily, we can't guarantee what we're going to get out of it anyway because we still own the land. So the village still owns the land, and until we have legal take a look at how they did it and what they did, we don't know exactly what we're going to get out of it, but we know it's going to be minimal. And who makes a deal? The document is 600 pages long almost.
The village at the time said that the reason that they wanted to continue ownership of the property and do a long-term sort of lease with the developer, if I'm recalling this correctly, is that it would actually give them more control to make sure that that development was up to par, and that 10 or 15 years goes by and they're not slacking on the maintenance or trying to turn it into something other than a senior living facility, which is what the village wanted it to be in the first place. So how do you respond to what some of those explanations for maintaining that deal as it was voted on by the village at the time?
I think it's nonsense. Now I'm gonna tell you why. Because as a municipality, if they're doing an economic development piece on a piece of property that you own, you can write it into the development agreement, certain things that they would be required to do for certain periods of time, certain ways they would be able to use the property, how it's zoned, the whole 9 yards. The village has all of that control. You don't have to give away the land to do that. You don't have to give the land away to have that control. The two do not match. In other words, owning the land does not equal you have control over what the deal is. The issue is that you write it into the development agreement. This is what you're going to put here, period. And then hold them accountable to put down there what they want. Or, I mean, what the agreement says. Not to say that I'm going to keep the land, because once the structure is built, the structure is going to be there. It's going to be there anyway. So the structure's on the land, but we own the land. So what?
Mm-hmm.
And if we didn't own the land, the structure would still be there. And if they wanted to do something different, it was part of an economic development plan. And you could have written it right into the agreement that they would have to forfeit their rights to the property if, in fact, they did anything different than what was agreed upon. You just write it into the agreement. You make a legal document and just write it into the agreement. This is what's going to go here. This is what we're going to do with this, unless the village agrees to change it with you, unless the village agrees to make an adjustment to the agreement.
So that building is in the process of going up as we speak.
That's correct.
You're elected. Are you going to try to change anything about the insofar as you even can? Because a lot of this is already.
Well, that's the whole point. The problem is sometimes how they say it, the barn door is already closed. They're gone. It may be too late to do anything about it. I don't know. We can take a look at the contract and see what it was. But like I said, it's like a 600-page document. It reads like War and Peace. So it's just crazy.
What are some of your views on developing Roosevelt Road in general? Because that's a key economic strip in Broadview.
Right.
And how do some of your views on development in that area differ from the current mayor?
Well, I'm not trying to put a lot of people on top of people. She wants to use some of those vacant lots on Roosevelt Road to build multi-unit housing. That doesn't work. To build more multi-unit marginal housing or multi-unit low-income housing is like building the projects in Broadview. We've already seen that doesn't work. That's why the city of Chicago tore them down. But that's exactly what the model is what the mayor is talking about, to grow the population. Why are you trying to grow the population? You're landlocked. It's not like you got, 1,000 acres of land that's undeveloped and it's just flat and you need to build houses and businesses on it and you want to grow the population that way. Your population is stable in Broadview at somewhere around 6,000 to 6,500 people. That shouldn't change. You don't need to put a whole lot more people on top of each other. My plan for Roosevelt Road was real simple: to make it mixed use, make it look similar to the way Madison Avenue is in Forest Park or Lake Street is in Oak Park. If I'm going to put 2 or 3 story buildings out there, I need to have the retail pieces on the bottom. I need to have shops and stores that people can go to, strip mall, maybe a sports bar, maybe another breakfast restaurant, soul food restaurant, Mexican restaurant, anything. People spend their money. People from Broadview spend their money in Oak Brook, Downers Grove, Oak Park, because that's where they can only go sit down and watch a game, have a beer, or go have a burger and sit down and relax. We don't have any place like that in Broadview. Broadview should be a destination. We should have all of these types of things in Broadview where people can go and just hang out and gather, peacefully and enjoy a baseball game or a basketball game with a burger and a beer, or sit down to a nice Mexican dinner or a nice steak. Any of these things can go on Roosevelt Road. The problem is you just got to get them here.
The current administration recently unveiled their housing plan.
That's what I'm talking about.
Village. Yeah. What did you take a look at that, and what are some of your thoughts on it?
I thought about it, and I think it's a recipe to turn it into the project. I think that they're missing the target here. First of all, Broadview is only 2.2 square miles. We've only got a certain amount of commercial frontage. So Roosevelt Road and a block of 17th Avenue is your commercial corridor in the main part of town. and then you got the mall on the southern end of town. But you want to put residential housing in an area that's designed for commercial on a state highway. That doesn't make any sense. You're blowing your opportunity to generate the alternative revenue. You need to have a secondary revenue stream in order to make it work, in order to keep your funds going. Because property taxes alone will not support a community. It just is known. It's a known fact. What supports a community is sales tax, licensing, and fees. You know, those are the things that really fund your village. And the Village Square Mall by itself, I'll just use that as an example. Annually, we get over $1.2 million or $1.3 million in sales tax from the Village Square Mall. Now, COVID hit, we may not get that for the last year, but we average over $1 million in sales tax out of the Village Square Mall. And we also get the property tax out of the Village Square Mall. So we get a double hit because of that. And you need to get the double hit in your commercial corridor because you only got so much commercial corridor. It's not like you're the city of Chicago and you got commercial everywhere. You're a small town. You have to maximize your commercial corridor and maximize your revenue opportunities. Otherwise, you put yourself behind the eight ball and you turn into some of our other suburban areas like Ford Heights, you know, places like that, Dixmoor, you know some of these places that just, you know, have financial issues and don't have any economic development. But you got to have an economic development, a plan, and you've got to be able to generate the secondary taxes, which are sales tax.
A large issue in the area of economic development recently is that Amazon recently announced that they are seeking to locate in Broadview.
Yeah.
But Amazon has also been under the radar for, you know, exploitative labor practices. Do you think, as regardless of who's mayor, you or Mayor Thompson, do you think that the any sitting mayor of any municipality where Amazon is looking to locate has a responsibility to speak out about some of those things that are happening at their facilities?
I absolutely do. I think that the discussion should have already happened. I think the representatives of Amazon should have been brought into City Hall already and talked to the police chief, the mayor, your building commissioner, you know, and the leadership of the village, and had a discussion to get a clear understanding of what the expectation is if they do come to Broadview and what the consequence is if they're not in compliance. So if you don't set the expectation up front and let them know that there is a consequence for failure to comply, then you missed an opportunity. And that's
what would some consequences be?
The consequences would be fines, fees, penalties. You know, the best way to deal with businesses is to deal with them financially. You know, shut them down. You know, I'll give you a perfect example. I had a business in town that was doing carrying on some illegal activities. I closed them. They can't make any money. They have to talk to you. They're gonna have to do something because they got the property. They got to pay the property taxes. They've got employees that they're gonna have unemployment issues. So they have to talk to you. You make them talk to you, and then you hold them accountable. You levy the fine. You know, they pay the fine, and we'll move on. And I'll give you a perfect example. The Blue Note Club that we have in Broadview used to be the Town Tap. It had, linoleum floors, and it looked like an old saloon, an old bar. There was a murder committed there. I closed them. They were closed for 9 months. They reopened as the Blue Note. You hold them accountable. You tell them what the expectation is, and here's the consequence. Okay, now you want to open up this. Here's what the expectation is. Here's the consequence. As a result, we have had very minimal issues with this particular location since they made the change. Couple of DUIs, couple of drunken disorderly, you know, a couple of those. But that goes with the territory of alcohol, period.
Kind of talk about the development that came into Broadview under your watch when you were mayor.
Oh, wow. So we did the Blue Note. That's one. We brought Checkers into town. Checkers had been in the region for a while back. It was an owner operator. He had franchises in Bellwood, Broadview, Maywood, or whatever. Went out of business. So corporate decided that they wanted to come back into the area. So we brought them back. Ultimately, they failed at the end of the day. So that's gone. The Marquee Restaurant, which was an old staple of Broadview for about 30 years, I want to say, the owners of that establishment ended up selling to a gentleman named Anthony, and we assisted him in the redevelopment of the restaurant to turn it into the Broadview restaurant that we have today. So if you haven't been to the Broadview breakfast and lunch restaurant, you should try it. It's quite a bit different from the Marquee. The Miss Kim property, Miss Kim is the owner of Kay's Beauty and Supply on 18th and Roosevelt. She also owns already gone up on 17th and Roosevelt. That building, that was an old structure, still had oil wells in the oil tanks in the basement. Really, really old structure. It looked like it came from the 30s and 40s. She didn't like it. So we assisted her in knocking it down. We assisted Ms. Kim in knocking that building down and building the structure that she has today. I sat with her, we talked about it, and we came up with the development plan for that entire corner. So you will see that we did a joint thing. We redid the entire alley. We did the parking lot behind there, and we convinced her to build a structure the way that it is so that it would accommodate certain types of entities, particularly restaurants, next to the Blue Note. So she's got a downstairs patio and an upstairs seating area, upstairs deck in the property. So it's a nice piece of property. Problem is COVID hit. When COVID hit, then the restaurant didn't want to come. But it's my understanding that once things open up, we'll have a soul food restaurant in there and possibly another business. So that's coming. Aside from that, we had some huge openings early on. Ashley Furniture and LA Fitness was a mere hole in the wall in 2009 when I got elected. Target had moved out and moved into the location that it's currently at, and their vacant spot that just sat empty. It was a hole there. And they were having problems with the previous administration trying to get things up. We managed to get the deal done, got LA Fitness and Ashley Furniture in place, and that worked out pretty good. We brought Deals into town, which is now a dollar store, Dollar Tree. We brought Lou Malnati's Pizza here. We brought in the phone company is over there. We also brought in the development that's over there by Chase Bank with O'Reilly and CD1 Cleaners. We did that deal and brought them in. Over inside in our industrial park, we brought in a couple of businesses. Solo Labs is here. They bought one of the industrial buildings in town, and what they do is mostly soaps and lotions and things like that. They make a last count that I knew of, they made like 8 or 9 different labels that we buy in our store at retail rates. We brought in Gray Mills. Gray Mills was located out in Wrigleyville. They sold their property to the Chicago Cubs organization. They needed a place to come. They came here. We brought MPC Materials here. MPC makes caulking. They make caulking that you see in industrial buildings. So when you see high rises and all the glass that's up there, that caulking that's on that glass, a lot of it comes right out of Broadview. So people don't know that, but it does. The Cookie Factory, we assisted them in expanding an additional 50,000 square feet when they got 3 more new cookie contracts. So they grew. And the list just goes on. Like I said, Porter Athletics moved out of town, and Garda Armored Car was prepared to move out of Broadview. So what I did was I coordinated a meeting with Porter Athletics and Garda, and Garda ended up taking over the Porter Athletics building, moving out of the 3 buildings that they have over on the southern end of town. And then after that, we brought in a trucking company to take up those 3 buildings to maximize our tenancy in our industrial park. So, those are just, a handful of the different moves that we made. Oh, the development at 17th and the Expressway and the overhead structure that's over there. So that that signage that's over there, that was a development deal that we ended up doing. And the agreement was with the gas station to redo the gas station. They're in the process of redoing it, turning it into a Dunkin' Donuts today. So that whole little corner is going to look a lot different from what it looked like before. So it's a fluid situation, and things are going. I did have developers for 13th. They kind of took a step back when the leadership changed. They did tell me that they would come back to the table and had a discussion if I get elected. So I've got some ideas about the vacant lots on Roosevelt Road as well.
Do you think that Mayor Thompson should get some credit for Amazon coming in?
Amazon was coming anyway. I shouldn't get any credit, nor should the mayor. Amazon was looking at the Robert Bosch property years ago. The whole thing was, were they going to put a fulfillment center in there, or were they just going to put a network like transportation, a delivery center in there? I don't know what they're putting in there. I don't know if it's going to be a fulfillment center or not. But they were looking for something in the region because of the location. You know, we talk about Broadview, Maywood. Matter of fact, Proviso Township as a whole is in a great location because we're right in the center of everything. If you go east, you get to downtown Chicago in 15 to 20 minutes. You go north, you can get to O'Hare. You go south, you get to Midway. If you go to the east, you can hit the tollway, and you can be in any town, in any state, with Wisconsin, Iowa, and Indiana. You can be in any of those towns in an hour, hour and a half. So it's a location more than anything else for Amazon.
The job, this is a question to ask about jobs. That's a question that often comes up when businesses are expanding. But the other question that isn't often asked is, how you can ensure that the quality of jobs are up to par, and that residents are going to work and are safe and are not being exploited by large companies. I want to come back to this because it's going to be a big issue that we're seeing it all over the country. Say Amazon comes in and they're hiring a lot of workers, some of which may be from Broadview, but those workers are complaining of conditions in which they're prone to injury, or conditions in which, or they want to unionize. Would you, as mayor, and I wish I could have the opportunity to ask the current mayor this as well, but would you, if you're in that position, support an effort among workers at that Amazon to unionize?
Let me share this with you. If you do not know, I am a retired unionized worker. I belong to 2 unions, and I believe in unions. They're absolutely positively necessary. They were more necessary back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s when working conditions were really horrendous. But now they're just as important because in some instances, depending upon the unscrupulous owners or the demands of the business, you've got people that are in violation of a lot of federal laws, including OSHA laws and in local laws and local labor laws. The idea is to make sure that they're compliant. And when they come, this goes back to the initial conversation that we had. When they come, you have to have that discussion. You have to have a conversation with them and set the expectation and let them know that you will be inspected, because we will inspect what we expect. So if I expect a certain thing or a certain outcome, then I'm going to reserve the right to come and inspect what it is you're doing over there. And if you're violating it, we're going to deal with that. But more importantly, they need to know what the expectation and the consequence is. And I do support unions. I think that anybody that chooses to be unionized should have the right to be unionized. And companies that don't want unions, that's because they want to be able to move around without any restrictions. They want to have unbridled freedom to do whatever they want to do with workers, usually within the law, sometimes in the gray area of the law. It just depends. But I think that they can be held accountable. You just have to have a tough enough group of individuals that are going to go out there and inspect it, and not let them go with things and not let things slide. Like I said, hold them accountable, hold them to the letter of the law.
I want to move into another aspect of your campaign that you consider critical, and that's transparency. What are some ways in which you as mayor would be more transparent than the current mayor?
Oh, there's a few ways. So first of all, let's talk about our board meetings. So our board meetings, we put an agenda up there, but we don't put the legislation. I think what we should do is put copies of the actual legislation, what it is that the board members are reading.
I want
And
to put a plug in there because you want to be clear that the village does post they post the agendas to each meeting.
correct.
They do post meeting video on the website and on YouTube, I believe.
Well, we're going to talk about that too. I'm getting to that. So,
but what you're saying is they do not post like you would see, like you go on the Maywood site where you get the actual packet, the agenda packet.
right. You need to get the packet. That's what you need.
Yeah.
So you can know so the residents can see what the trustees see and try to understand why trustees vote the way they vote. And then when they got questions, they can refer to different pages that are in the packet. Well, on page 39, it says blah, blah, blah. Can you explain this? That's what they need to see. They need to see that.
Right. And I just want to say that's incredibly helpful to me as a reporter. So I'm 100% in favor of that. Of that. So you're saying if you're elected, you would try implementing.
My goal is
you have agenda packets online.
Right. My goal is to have the entire legislative package online and available in multiple media streams or multiple locations. I would also like to have it available in the lobby for people to review if they need to review it, maybe 2 or 3 copies of it, So if you want to go refer to something, here it is. Because it would be too difficult to print the whole packet up and just pass it out. And I know a lot of people won't see it online, but if they come into Village Hall, we should have it available for them to see. So they can read and ask questions if they choose to. As relates to the video has been, and we do know, it has been edited. So there are certain things that are edited out of the video. I want to have unedited video. I want raw footage of whatever we do in that Village Hall.
When you say video has been edited, what exactly do you mean?
I mean that there are parts of the board meetings that are not being posted. They're literally edited out by our videographer. I've got proof of it. I've got the actual invoices that say this has been discussion between the public works director and the mayor edited. And then there's a fee for them taking it out. Wait a minute. It's a public board meeting. There's the sunshine laws. There's the open meetings act. And the whole idea is for people to be able to see exactly what your elected officials and your appointed, department heads are doing. But to edit it out, that's not good. Same thing with photographs. There was a situation, and this is all political stuff. There was a situation where Trustee Horn's face was taken out of a picture that was put on Facebook and put into our village bulletin. But she was there in the original. We got the original, and then we got the one that they posted. But she was taken out. This is incredible.
This is a communication that this was put on the village's Facebook page. And
I think it was on the village's Facebook page, but the picture won't reflect Marino.
What was the picture of?
I'll tell you where you can find it though. You can find it on Verina's living room on YouTube where she does her videos. She tells the whole story about her picture.
Where's what was the picture for those people who can't see it now? What can kind of describe where
it was a group picture. It was a group picture at it was either at an event or at an award ceremony, and Verina's face was edited out of it. Okay. So there's quite a few people on the picture. One picture you'll see Verina, and then the picture that they posted, her face is not there. And like I said, you can find it on Verina's living room. And she's got several videos that she's posted if you want to see them. Verina's living room, and she's got it on YouTube. And she actually shows the 2 photos, and she shows you where she was and where she's not. It's actually circled on there for you to see it. And there's the issue with the editing of the video. That's in print, and it's been being delivered to everyone's house because I put that. I had a copy of that sent to everybody so they can see that the board meetings are being edited.
So you're sure that those I think Kevin McGreer is in the comments. He said they were 2 different angles. So are you sure this wasn't a picture from a different angle?
No, everything else in the picture is identical.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Same thing with well, I said about the video and the whole 9 yards, but you'll see. And then you don't have to believe me. Just go look for yourself. I tell everybody, go look for yourself. If you want to see what's happening, just take a look for yourself.
Are there other aspects of how your administration would be more transparent than the current one?
Well, my goal is to be transparent to this degree. I actually, and I talked about this tonight on the telephone town hall. My plan is to have a monthly meeting with the residents. I want to open up Village Hall. I want to, carve out 2 hours a day during maybe on a Saturday, an hour on a Saturday and an hour one evening during the week, and have people just come down to Village Hall and talk directly to myself, other elected officials, and department heads about things, anything that they want to talk, whatever's on your mind. I want you to come down here and talk about it. And as far as us being transparent, I want to actually put the check register out. I want to have it posted online and posted on the wall so everybody can see who got paid what, what vendors got paid, what happened, and have the supporting data and documentation to support those expenditures available if somebody wants to see it. I think it's critical that we know. I'd like to have the employee roster and the employee list listed up there. And if there is anybody that's related to somebody, identify that. Nephew of, son of, father of, whoever. Because I have a huge issue with nepotism and favoritism. Those isms just doesn't work for me. The village should have a local hiring policy. We should have a more stringent hiring policy to hire our local residents to keep the money at home. We were working on that when I was in office, and we hired a lot of Broadview people. But that's not what's happening today.
Do you some people would say that when you were mayor toward the tail end, the village, there were no board video meetings, and the website wasn't really functional. How do you respond to critics who will say, well, we didn't have what we have now under the current mayor, under your administration? How are you going to change it when you get in office? It's a valid question.
Well, it is a valid question. There's a couple of things. Number one, we were still just now getting the revenue to create better infrastructure for the product. Secondly, I had an obstructed board that certain people weren't getting paid because board members didn't like them. Board members got an issue with somebody, so then they don't want to pay them. And when people don't get paid, they don't work. So, I had a real difficult time. My last 2 years in office were pure hell, but I think that, it's a learning process for me. Having sit in the trustee spot again and watch some of the things that the current mayor did, remember some of the things that I did, take the best of both worlds and meld them together. I think we can get a much, much, much better product. As relates to the video, what came with that was ineptness in the clerk's office, and lack of paying the people that are doing the work. They were having difficulties collecting their checks.
I want to go back to housing because I forgot to mention this, but I thought this was interesting. You have a proposal that you mentioned in a questionnaire that you filled out about wanting to create a partnership with local banks to provide and promote funding for potential home buyers. Can you go a little bit into detail about that?
Yeah. So the way banking laws sit today, if there are banks in your community, they have an obligation to reinvest in the community. And if I can create a partnership with the village and the bank to, help fund and finance real estate, and have us as the guarantor on it, for whoever buys it or whatever, I think that we could be able to get more home ownership and less renters in town. If people can pay $1,200 or $1,300, in some cases $1,700, $1,800 a month in rent, they can certainly pay a mortgage. So if you've got a 1,400 square foot house and you can pay for that in a rental, you can certainly pay for a mortgage. And I think that these banks should get involved. I think that we should demand that they get involved with trying to get home ownership. And same thing with business, startup businesses and business ownerships. I think that they should get involved the same way. I think that we should have this kind of a partnership, this kind of a relationship with our financial institutions that are local. and call them out on it. If you want to be here and you want to get money from our people, you want our people to patronize your business, then doggone it, you need to reinvest in these same people. That's the way I feel about it.
You think the village has, done an adequate job in managing the COVID-19 crisis with respect to putting in various protocols and also budgeting appropriately amid a recession that was created by the pandemic?
I've spent a lot of time about talk about the budget. I think that we missed the target on the budget. I think that the budget is flawed, and I think that it's got some major challenges, some major issues. Managing COVID up to a point, we did pretty good by keeping everyone informed, providing masks and sanitizer and all these other things. But then we don't follow our own rules. Just 2 weeks ago, almost our entire public works department was out for contact COVID because you had 2 employees that traveled out of state and out of the country, came back and didn't quarantine properly, went to work and came in contact with all these people. And they all knew the rule. And you end up with, 11, 12 people off. That should never happen. And quiet as it's kept, it should have included the mayor and a couple of people in Village Hall who had come in contact with these people, because one of them is running in the mayor's campaign. She's supporting this individual for the Park District, so I know she came in contact with her. So she should have been quarantined too. So we got to follow the rules, but we did a pretty good job of it, I believe. We got the information out. People understood what was going on. They came in and got supplies and the whole 9 yards. Now we're in the defensive stage, the preventative stage now, where you got people getting tested regularly and actually getting the shot.
The other important aspect of your campaign is infrastructure. Talk a bit about your plans for improving the village's infrastructure.
Well, if you take a look at Roosevelt Road, you can look at the cutouts along Roosevelt Road and the new lighting that we put on Roosevelt Road. It kind of changed the dynamic of the western end of Roosevelt Road between 18th and 23rd, 22nd or 23rd, I do believe. That area of Roosevelt Road was the area where the curb line actually went right to the street, so you couldn't even park out there without parking up on the sidewalk. So we cut it out to allow parking along Roosevelt Road. That helps the businesses, because now you got customers that can pull up on Roosevelt Road and park in front of your business and get in and get out the car, as opposed to having to drive all the way around the back off of the alley or off of a side street to try to walk back to the business. So when you have those type of dynamics, people tend to just drive on to the next stop, which is more convenient. So our job is to make it user friendly. We want to make it as convenient as possible for everybody to, partake of any business that we have in Broadview. If you want to patronize one of our businesses, we need to be able to try to help you patronize our business, because that's our lifeblood. So we need to make sure that these people are able to get access to these businesses on Roosevelt Road that do not have a lot of parking. So if you travel down Roosevelt Road, you'll see one thing we're lacking is a lot of parking. There's a couple of lots, but neither one of them are big. So
the parking situation is another area where you differ from the current mayor. And I think you all had some differences of opinion about a proposed development. I think it's a proposed event facility going up on Roosevelt Road. You didn't think that there would be enough parking to accommodate that. Tell me some of your thoughts about beyond that though, what are some of your thoughts about making sure that the parking situation, it's particularly along a key business corridor like Roosevelt Road, can be improved so that there's more economic activity among the businesses in that area? And then some specific thoughts about some of the mayor's plans and some activity that's taking place during her term that you may have some differences of opinion about.
Well, let's start with the one entity that's going up, and that's the Red Door. The Red Door is owned by Senator Lightford. Senator Lightford bought an old bookstore and wants to convert it into a hall, like a banquet hall type of situation. that houses anywhere from 250 to 300 people. Well, 250 to 300 people, if two people are riding in a car, you're talking about 150 cars. The village code, let's start with the village code. The village code requires that if you are doing the development in an area, you need to have X amount of parking for X amount of individuals that are going to be on your property at any point in time. We have that village code for apartment buildings. We have that village code for any development that's going up. If you're going to be able to accommodate 100 people, you need to have 35 or 40 spots, whatever the number is. This particular red door entity has 0 parking. When I say 0, the only parking that's available for this particular entity is public parking on the side of the building on the street. Because she's the mayor's friend, they totally ignored the parking issue. Now, I want to let you know, I like Senator Lightford. She's a friend of mine, but I would not let her open up under these conditions. She owned that property for a couple of years before I left office. And it was stagnant because my whole thing was you need to acquire parking some way. And it didn't happen. There's a lot directly across the street from her that she could have tried to purchase, where a building burned down over there, but it didn't happen. And so now you've got a structure here that's probably going to have cars in front of people's houses and driveways and a lot of congestion. And you put it in a cul-de-sac area. So that area, when you come out, there's really nowhere to get out unless you go 2 blocks down. So it's going to cause a major issue whenever they have any kind of an event over there. So I'm a proponent of following the rules. And our rule says that if you're going to do a business like this, you need to have on-site parking to accommodate these individuals. If you do not have on-site parking, you need to have leased parking within close proximity to your property to do these types of businesses. I just don't understand the logic behind it other than the fact that they're friends, they're buddies. Your other question was what else?
A larger, some larger vision for making sure that businesses on Roosevelt Road have.
Oh yeah, so here's what you have to do. You have to get creative, and you can take models from other towns and other cities. There's going to have to be parking somewhere, so you got to decide where the parking is going to be. The problem is the areas that we need to get developed, they need a traffic light, but it's Roosevelt Road, it's a state highway. There's a lot of red tape we got to cut through to get a traffic light there. The good thing is the state rep is a friend of mine. The governor's a friend of mine. I do believe if I go to the state rep and the governor, we can figure out a way to get a traffic light at 13th or 14th and Roosevelt. If you get a traffic light there, now you attract businesses that will be sitting at a light. It's a different dynamic. And you just must require that there's parking there. So you can't build a structure, a huge structure, and totally ignore parking. It's just a requirement.
So did you vote on the redevelopment agreement about the red door?
I did. I opposed it. I opposed it because of lack of parking.
But did you vote for it?
To vote for it to do what? To be built?
Yeah. Did you vote for the redevelopment agreement, the ordinance?
I don't think I might have voted for a redevelopment agreement. It's been such a long time. I do know that I voted against the redevelopment absent parking. When they originally talked about it, they said, that they would, figure out the parking. Well, that's fine. We'll do it. But you still got to figure out the parking. When they didn't have the parking done, because they came to us 3 times because they got TIF assistance. The state senator got TIF assistance for her property on Roosevelt Road. The village gave her money to assist her in the development of the property, which is the proper process. It's in a TIF district. It was a dilapidated building. They're going to upgrade it. So they tapped into the TIF funds, which is great. But they still haven't addressed the parking. And until they address the parking, I cannot approve it going forward.
The clerk McGreer is saying that there would be valet services that were agreed to by business partners nearby. What do you recall that aspect of the agreement?
No, I do not recall that aspect of the agreement. But valet service is all great. That's usually a luxury. That's usually an extra. It's an extra on top of regular parking. And let me go back to my original statement. The village code requires on-site parking, and they just totally ignored that. They waived that for the state senator.
Do you the last issue that I want to talk about was public safety.
Oh,
So I kind of want to give you an opportunity to explain how you differ from the mayor in the area of public safety.
I'm quite a bit more hands-on with the police department, and my commanders will tell you. I'm one of those mayors that gets up and rides around town at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and asks, where are my squad cars at? I don't see them. I have an issue when I see squad cars sitting, talking car to car and not patrolling or not being in areas where there's a higher crime rate or a higher risk of crime. If the mall, if our Village Square Mall basically closes at 9 or 10 o'clock, there's no reason for me to have 2 squads sitting over there at 11 in the dark. They need to be over here by Roosevelt Road, along the Maywood border, and in other areas. So that's where I really differ with her. You know, I'm more hands-on with my police department. I support them 1,000% because I think they're absolutely necessary, and I think we got a good police department. I think we got a great fire department. Our fire department and our police department have both been recognized nationally. So there's no doubt that we've got good quality individuals there. But sometimes the leadership has got to, light a fire on them, put a burr up their butt, to get them to move. But we make sure that they're outfitted with all updated equipment, proper equipment. Just bought some new vehicles for the police department. We started that process back in 2010, 2009, 2010, re-outfitting the police department and putting a plan in place to rotate the vehicles in so we would always have newer vehicles in the police department. Same thing with public safety with the fire department. We bought a new engine. We didn't borrow any money to buy the new engine. We got a huge grant that helped us get a fire engine. And we have 2 ambulances on call, 2 ambulances on call all day, every day. So in the event that one's busy, we still got a backup and a secondary opportunity. So, yeah, we're very on top of the public safety. Now, where the mayor differs, I can't call it. I don't think that she gets really involved with the public safety aspect of it as much as I do. I'm more hands-on with public safety. The crime rate in Broadview is a little different these days because of COVID, I think, is one thing. The economy, something else. And the changing demographics of Broadview. The demographics in Broadview is once again a fluid situation. It changes. When I grew up here, it was 90+% Caucasian. In the 90s, going into the early 2000s, it was like 80% African American, and now you got a lot of influx of Latinos and Asians in the community. So it's changing quite a bit. But in the meantime, the crime has changed, and a lot of it has to do with gangs. Gang initiations, and things like that. So we had a couple of carjackings here. We had a guy got stabbed, but my problem is we're not reporting it and we're not being more preventive as opposed to reactionary. You got to be proactive as opposed to being reactive, and you got to get in front of all this stuff, and that's what we're not doing. We're failing in that area.
I want to give you an opportunity to take as much time as you want to explain why people ought to elect you as mayor on April 6th.
The reason people should elect me on April 6th is because I have a vision for the town. I have a more sound financial policy and plan for the village of Broadview. I'm dedicated to the service. I'm a lifelong resident of Broadview. And my track record speaks for itself. What we have done and what we did in Broadview for the 2 terms that I was here in office is I'll match it up with anybody. I would compare my record to anyone's record. And I think that's one of the reasons why Mayor Thompson didn't want to be on this show with me, because she knows that there's no comparison. There is no comparison. There is absolutely no way. Myself and the members of my ticket are the most experienced, most loyal, dedicated individuals that will represent the village of Broadview. This has never been about me. I'm not a Facebook fanatic. I'm not a Twitter fanatic. I'm not into that. My whole goal when I got in office, and should I get back in office, is to make the life better for those people that live here. Get the crime rate reduced, get the revenues up, and make sure that everybody's got a safe, nice place to live, and they don't have to worry about anything happening if they walk in or out of their front doors at night. And that's where I'm at. So I just think that, I'm the better, more qualified individual for the job.
Trustee Jones, I appreciate you taking the opportunity to do this, especially on a Friday night. A lot of the stuff. Thank you.
Yeah. You know what? And I appreciate you for having me on. And hopefully we'll be victorious on Tuesday. We prevail Tuesday. And hopefully we'll have some more conversations about good things going on in Broadview.
I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Take care.
Have a good night.